Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a really vital question. How do we actually cultivate the environmental leaders we need for the future? And our guide for this is a fascinating study. It's from the Purple Insight Lab, and it looks at the surprising power of, well, debate, specifically for young people, ages 12 to 18.
Yeah, and for you listening, someone who really values getting to the heart of things quickly, but, thoroughly, and loves those aha moments.
Right.
This is going to be right up your alley. We're basically about to connect the dots between something that sounds pretty academic, structured arguments and the very real challenges of building a sustainable future.
Exactly. So we've got the findings from this Purple Insight Lab study, and it doesn't just draw on general research. It takes a really close look at Little Purple's own initiative, the Purple SustyBate debate competition.
Right. And our goal here, our mission, if you like, is to pull out the key insights. We want to show how the skills you build through debate critical thinking, persuasive communication, how those skills directly help young people become effective, impactful environmental leaders.
Okay, sounds good. So where do we start? Maybe the big picture. Why this focus on youth leadership and sustainability right now? Is it particularly urgent?
Well, the study really emphasizes the urgency, yeah. I mean, look around. The world's facing some serious environmental crises, climate change being a big one. And it's pretty clear we need a kind of a new wave of leaders to tackle these things. And young people, the study points out, they bring this unique energy, this drive, and often really fresh perspectives.
But there's a disconnect, isn't there? The study mentioned something about funding.
That's what's really striking, yeah. You have all this potential, this energy and creativity from young people, but their actual environmental initiatives, they often struggle. Big time.
How so?
Lack of resources. Get this. Less than 1% of institutional climate funding actually reaches youth-led initiatives.
Wow. Less than 1%.
Yeah. And on top of that, there often aren't formal ways for them to really have their voices heard, to give input on policy. It really makes you wonder, how much potential are we leaving untapped?
Absolutely. And that lack of support, it really highlights why initiatives like this Purple SustyBate are so critical. This study even points out that the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, has stressed how important it is to invest in these young leaders for sustainability.
Exactly. Ignoring their potential isn't just an oversight. It has, real long-term consequences.
So this Purple SustyBate, it's tried to fill that gap.
That's precisely it. It's more than just a debate competition. The study frames it as a direct response to this gap. It gives young people structured opportunities, real resources to build their leadership skills specifically for the environmental field. It helps turn that potential into, tangible action.
Okay, so we have this urgent need. Now, let's talk about debate itself. Because, some people might just think of it as like a stuffy school activity.
Right.
But the study positions it as a really powerful educational tool. It even mentions its history, going way back to ancient Greece. Why do you think it's lasted so long as an educational practice?
Well, I think its staying power comes from how holistic it is. It's not just about, winning an argument for the sake of it.
Right.
It's a dynamic process. It actively develops critical thinking, communication skills, even fundamental leadership qualities. It's like a workout for the brain, really.
Well, workout for the brain. I like that.
Oh.
And for teenagers, that 12 to 18 age range, the study says debate offers a really unique environment for growth. Why that age group specifically?
It seems to hit this sweet spot. It's structured, so it provides guidance, a framework. But it's also challenging enough to really push them intellectually and personally. It stretches them.
And there's this idea of it being a safe space for intellectual exploration.
Exactly. The study highlights that. It's like a learning lab. Young people can try out different ideas, practice a whole range of skills, from deep analysis to speaking confidently in public, all without the kind of high stakes you might find in the real world. It allows for growth through, trial and error.
Okay, that makes sense. So this brings us nicely to Little Purple and their Purple SustyBate initiative. The study really showcases how this organization, founded by G.B. Langa, is intentionally mixing creativity with environmental education. That sounds pretty innovative.
It really is. And Purple SustyBate isn't just a one-off thing. The study points out it's part of a much bigger picture, a whole portfolio of initiatives.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, there's Purple Upcycle STEAM, that's science, tech, engineering, arts, and maths, focused on upcycling.
Okay.
There's also the Kansani book series and even a weekly webcomic. It shows this real commitment to reaching young people in lots of different engaging ways, embedding sustainability education across different formats.
That's quite comprehensive. So Purple SustyBate itself, it's a quarterly competition focused specifically on sustainability.
Yes, exactly. The core idea is to get young people actively researching, thinking about, and discussing environmental issues. And the hope, the design really, is that this deep engagement naturally builds their critical thinking, their leadership potential, and importantly, that sense of responsibility, that urge to advocate for the environment.
And Little Purple has its own research arm looking into this.
That's right. The Purple Insight Lab, the ones who did the study we're discussing, they're systematically looking at how these programs, especially Purple SustyBate, are actually impacting young people. Are they inspiring responsibility? Are they enhancing critical thinking?
So they can refine things based on evidence.
Precisely. It allows them to fine-tune their approach based on real-world impact. It's a very intentional setup.
And there's a link between the programs. I think the study mentions something about winners.
Yeah, that's another interesting part of the design. Winners from the Purple Upcycle STEAM program, which is for younger students, grades 4 to 11, they can actually advance to Purple SustyBate.
Okay, so it creates a pathway.
Exactly. It encourages continued engagement as they get older. And something else the study highlights, which I think shows real commitment.
What's that?
Little Purple reinvests 20% of the registration fees from Purple SustyBate right back into schools, specifically to support their student-run sustainability clubs.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Well,
it's like creating a whole ecosystem for this.
It really is a self-sustaining ecosystem of environmental education.
Great. And just practically for anyone listening who might be interested, the study notes the competition often closes around October 1st, and the prizes are quite significant, upwards of $20,000 apparently.
Definitely worth looking into.
Okay, so we've established the urgent need. We see debate as this powerful tool, and we've got Little Purple and Purple SustyBate as a concrete example. Now, let's really dig into the foundational skills that debate builds. The study breaks this down really well, starting with cognitive and academic advancement.
Right.
And that statistic is pretty eye-opening. An 87% increase in analytical skills reported by the National Speech and Debate Association in the U.S. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
What parts of debate do you think really drive that kind of development? And how does that help with, say, understanding complex environmental data?
Well, I think a huge part of it is the need to take arguments apart, identify the core claims, look at the evidence being used, evaluate its strength. That whole process of deconstruction and analysis, it just naturally builds those analytical muscles. So when students then face complex environmental data, maybe reports on climate change or biodiversity loss, they're just better equipped to break it down, understand the methods behind it, and draw conclusions that are actually informed instead of just being, overwhelmed by it all.
That makes a lot of sense. And the study also talks about research skills, how debate forces students to really dig deep, gather info from different places, analyze stats. And this seems critical. Figure out if sources are credible and if they have a bias.
Absolutely critical, especially today with so much information and misinformation flying around.
Right. So how does debate specifically help them get better at spotting reliable information, particularly for something complex and often contested like climate science?
It really comes down to the built-in training in source criticism. In a debate, you're constantly questioning your opponent's evidence, right? And you have to defend your own. So that forces you to ask, who produced this information? What might their agenda be? Is the methodology sound? Are they in cherry-picking data? These are the exact same questions you need to ask when you see a study or an article about climate change or any environmental issue. It helps them get past just the headlines.
And the academic benefits seem quite broad, too. The study points to debaters having significantly higher reading scores, better GPAs, even big jumps in English language arts tests. It's not just about arguing better.
No, definitely not. I think it's because debate builds this whole cluster of interconnected skills. Better analysis leads to better reading comprehension.
Okay.
The tough research improves how they absorb and understand information across all subjects. And needing to build clear arguments strengthens their writing and general communication. It's not just one skill in isolation. It's like a positive feedback loop, boosting overall academic performance.
So it's really about building a more robust way of thinking and learning overall. Makes sense. Okay, let's shift gears slightly to another area the study emphasizes. Personal growth and communication mastery. It talks about boosting confidence and public speaking skills. That confidence part feels really important for young people finding their voice.
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. The whole process of researching deeply, crafting your arguments, and then actually standing up and presenting them, often under pressure in front of others, that's incredibly empowering.
Yeah, I can see that.
It helps students tackle that very common fear of public speaking, sure, but it also builds this deeper sense of self-assurance that goes way beyond the debate itself. They learn, hey, I can articulate my thoughts clearly, I can be persuasive. That's a massive life skill.
And it's not just about sounding good, is it? The study mentions it's about logical arguments, using persuasive techniques strategically, connecting emotionally, and grounding everything in solid evidence. It sounds like a very complete approach to communication.
It really is. They learn the art of rhetoric, essentially, how to shape your message for your audience, how to build a compelling story around your points, how to use evidence not just as proof, but persuasively. That's vital for any kind of leadership, especially when you're trying to convince people about the urgency of sustainability.
Learning how to craft those attention-grabbing openings and memorable conclusions, too. But maybe one of the most fascinating points here is how debate fosters empathy and open-mindedness. Because it requires students to research and argue both sides of an issue.
Yes, this is so key.
How does that actually work in practice? Does it really make them more open-minded?
I think it's transformative when you have to genuinely step into shoes that aren't your own to understand and articulate a perspective you might personally disagree with. It forces you to see the complexity. You start to understand that there can be valid points on different sides. It teaches you to engage with opposing views respectfully, to look for nuance, maybe even find common ground. That's absolutely essential for collaboration, especially in sustainability.
That ability to see things from multiple angles feels incredibly relevant for sustainability, doesn't it? You've got businesses, communities, governments, activists, all with potentially very different, deeply held views.
Exactly. So that empathy developed through debate, it's not just about being intellectually flexible. It's about building a truly collaborative mindset. Sustainability solutions almost always require bringing diverse groups together. And if you can't understand or respect where others are coming from, you're not going to get very far in building consensus or driving action.
Right. Okay, let's move on to problem solving and decision making. The study suggests debate is a really good training ground here, too. How does the debate format actually help build those skills?
Well, it forces students to take these huge, often messy, complex issues and break them down. They have to identify the core problems, the underlying assumptions, maybe potential policy solutions.
Okay.
This analytical process is fundamental to critical thinking, and it leads to a much more structured way of approaching problems rather than just, reacting emotionally.
And debates are pretty dynamic, right? You get unexpected questions, counter-arguments you didn't anticipate. That must force some quick thinking.
Oh, absolutely. You have to think on your feet. You need to adapt your strategy, make quick decisions about how to respond, which arguments to prioritize. That kind of adaptive thinking is incredibly valuable.
It sounds like great practice for leaders who will inevitably face unexpected challenges and need to pivot.
It really is. That mental agility, that ability to assess a situation quickly and make an informed decision under pressure, that's vital for leaders in any field, but maybe especially in sustainability, where things are constantly evolving. The science changes, policies shift. Debate gives them a safe space, like we said, to practice those skills and build self-assurance.
Like a mental sandbox for problem solving under pressure.
Yeah.
Okay, the final area the study looks at is civic engagement and social responsibility. How does arguing about societal issues actually lead to wanting to get involved civically?
Well, the process of researching and debating these issues, which are often quite contentious, it prompts young people to really understand the history behind them, to question current policies, especially those that might affect marginalized groups, and even to start thinking about potential solutions. It moves them beyond just being aware of problems to understanding their own role as citizens and their potential to actually influence change.
And the debate club itself can become a place for these discussions.
Exactly. The study highlights that these clubs provide vital platforms for students to grapple with critical issues. This fosters a stronger sense of civic identity, a feeling that their voice matters, and often a real desire to take action in their communities. It connects the intellectual exercise to real-world participation.
So they learn about dialogue, respecting different views, working for the common good.
Precisely. And when the debate topic is specifically environmental, it naturally raises awareness about those issues, creates a sense of urgency, and often encourages direct youth activism, advocating for sustainable policies in their schools, their towns, maybe even at a higher level.
Okay, so we've really unpacked how debate builds this wide range of foundational skills.
Hmm.
Now, let's make that crucial link explicit. How do these skills directly map onto what makes an effective sustainability leader? The study provides a pretty clear connection, right?
It does. It lays out several key attributes needed for youth sustainability leadership.
Such as?
Well, first, there's systems thinking, that ability to see how everything's interconnected. Environment, society, economy.
Right.
Then collaborative leadership, being able to build trust and get people working together. Obviously, problem solving and decision making are key. Persuasive communication and advocacy you need to articulate a vision and get others on board.
Okay.
Empathy and open-mindedness, which we've talked about. Self-awareness and confidence. And finally, a strong sense of civic responsibility and being action-oriented, not just thinking, but doing.
That's a comprehensive list. So how do the debate skills feed directly into developing these attributes? Can you give an example?
Sure. Take systems thinking. The critical thinking and analytical skills you hone in debate, breaking down complex arguments, seeing connections directly help young leaders grasp that complex web of factors driving environmental problems. It's not just about pollution here. It's about policy, economics, social justice, all linked together.
Okay, I see that. What about research skills?
The rigorous research and evidence evaluation needed for debate translates directly into better, more informed decision-making. Sustainability strategies need to be based on solid data and understanding, not just good intentions. Debate trains them for that.
And the communication piece, how does that fit?
That's fundamental for advocacy and influence, isn't it? The persuasive communication skills from debate allow young leaders to articulate their vision for a sustainable future clearly, passionately. They can mobilize support, whether it's among their peers, in their community, or even when talking to policymakers.
Right, and the empathy part. Understanding different sides.
That feeds directly into collaborative leadership. Like we said, sustainability often involves bringing together people with very different views, industry, activists, local residents. Being able to genuinely understand and respect those different perspectives, which debate forces you to practice, is absolutely essential for building bridges and fostering partnerships that actually work.
Yeah, the connections really are powerful and direct when you lay them out like that.
It really drives home that debate isn't just, an extracurricular activity. It's actively building the capabilities needed for future environmental champions.
Okay, let's focus a bit more now on how debate specifically fosters environmental awareness and the skills for advocacy. It seems intuitive that just researching environmental topics for a debate would boost awareness.
Absolutely. It inherently makes young people dive deep. You can't just skim the surface if you need to build a strong argument about climate policy or biodiversity loss.
Right.
You need to understand the science, the social impacts, the economic factors, the different policy options. That deep engagement naturally creates a much stronger foundation of environmental awareness.
And we often see young activists emerge from forums like these, don't we? Armed with that knowledge and passion.
Yes, and they go on to raise awareness and empower others. It's often a direct result of the skills and confidence they've built. Debate gives them a platform, a way to make their voices heard, to demand action, to hold institutions accountable for their environmental impact. They learn how to articulate their concerns effectively.
And the skills in crafting arguments, defending positions that directly equips them to engage with policymakers, doesn't it? To advocate for better practices.
Exactly. Whether it's writing letters, organizing a local campaign, speaking at a town hall meeting, the skills are transferable. It's about empowering them to be active agents of change, not just passive observers.
Really moving from understanding the problem to actively shaping the solutions.
Which brings us right back to Purple SustyBate as a concrete example of putting these ideas into practice. The study presents it as a real-world model for nurturing these eco-leaders. What makes their approach particularly effective, according to the study?
Well, the study highlights its core objectives, which align perfectly with what we've been discussing. It's about getting young people to explore these critical environmental issues deeply.
Right.
To actively develop those key debate skills, analysis, communication, research, and ultimately to really embrace that sense of environmental responsibility and the drive to advocate.
And the way they teach it, the pedagogy, is rooted in that structured debate format. It's intentionally designed to boost critical thinking, analytical skills, evaluating evidence, all specifically applied to understanding environmental challenges. It's not just arguing for argument's sake. It's building environmental literacy through debate.
Plus, that competitive, that supportive environment they create, the study notes, really builds confidence in public speaking and sharpens those persuasive communication skills needed for advocacy. They're practicing making the case for sustainability in a dynamic setting.
And remember the arguing both sides point. Purple SustyBate really leverages that to build empathy and open-mindedness. That's so important for collaborative problem-solving and environmental governance, where you absolutely need to find common ground among different interests.
And it's not just the debate competition in isolation, is it? The study emphasizes this synergy with Little Purple's other work.
Exactly. It connects to the hands-on learning in Purple Upcycle STEAM, the stories in the Kansani books, the reach of the webcomic. It creates this really holistic, multi-pronged approach.
So it's engaging them on multiple levels.
Yeah, it ensures these young leaders get the intellectual tools from debate, but also have that grounding in practical action and broader sustainability ideas through creative formats. It's nurturing both the head and the heart, you could say.
That's a great way to put it. So, okay, let's try and wrap this up. If we had to boil it down, the key takeaway from this Purple Insight Lab study seems really clear. Debate is way more than just an academic thing. It's actually a powerful engine for developing the crucial skills, the critical mindsets that young people really need to become effective sustainability leaders.
Absolutely. We've traced those direct lines, haven't we? How analyzing arguments, doing solid research, communicating persuasively, understanding different viewpoints, all skills sharpened by debate, are just fundamental for tackling the complex environmental issues we're facing.
So a final thought, perhaps, for you listening. How might supporting or creating debate opportunities in your own community, or maybe for young people you know, how could that contribute to building a more sustainable future? What role can this kind of structured discussion really play in empowering the next generation of environmental problem solvers?
That's a really important question to reflect on. And if you are interested in digging deeper, seeing these ideas in action, we definitely encourage you to check out the Purple Insight Lab study itself, or look into initiatives like Purple SustyBate. Think about how you might support or even replicate models like this. Because ultimately, the future of our planet needs informed, articulate, empathetic leaders. And as we've seen today, debate can be a surprisingly powerful tool in helping